Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of the Contrarian. I am delighted to introduce someone who I have known for a lifetime, and that is Maggie Goodlander, representative from New Hampshire. She and I met a million years ago when she was working for Senator John McCain, a hero of mine. I know of hers as well. Since then, she has done phenomenal things, including serving in the Naval Reserve as an intelligence officer, and of course, running for office and now serving the people of New Hampshire. Maggie, welcome.
Hi, Jen. Thanks so much for having me. It's so good to
Uh,
see you and to be
you
with
too. You too. Putting on your intelligence hat for a moment, and also the experience you learned while working for Senator McCain. What was your reaction when instantaneously the president came out and said, Porto is destroyed?
you. I think what has been really challenging about these past several days as a member of Congress, and I think of John McCain many times every single day, because when I worked in Congress as a staff person, we had an environment where even when there were differences in party, Congress actually had a seat at the table, and we were involved. And I carried my Constitution with me everywhere I go because this document is very useful these days in this job. Um, One of my first reactions has been just how stunning it is that Congress was not given in the ordinary course the notifications, or even now, as we sit here now, we still have not been briefed. I'm a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Um, it is, there's no good reason to leave Congress in the dark on this. And there's no good reason because there is bipartisan still. So much has changed since you and I saw each other here when Senator John McCain was alive and well, and in in this institution, an important force. There is still a bipartisan, bicameral supermajority in Congress committed to the basic proposition that the Iranian regime should never get a nuclear weapon. This is a bipartisan idea. There's no good reason to keep Congress out of basic information streams and the refusal to answer basic questions. I feel it every day in my job. It makes it so hard for me to do my job. I've got parents of service members who are asking basic questions that I don't have the answer to, and there is no good reason for it.
Congress and the Senate was famous for this, is also there to ask hard questions, to test the premises, to find out what is the intelligence behind that decision. That was not done at all in this case. Have you seen intelligence that, and I don't want to put you in a compromising position, but we haven't seen anything in the public realm, put it this way, that would support either the conclusion that Iran was just at the verge of weaponizing a bomb, nor any data so far that the nuclear program has been, quote, destroyed, obliterated. Isn't Congress there to help the public get a handle on that and to check, frankly, the credibility, the integrity of the administration?
It absolutely is. And I saw this firsthand, working as an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve inside of our intelligence community. There's a reason that we have checks on this power, and Congress is here to ask the hard questions, to pressure test. And as I sit here now, like I said, we've had no briefing from this administration. What I've read about, to the extent I've read about any assessments, it's been in open source press articles about these assessments, which just is not how we should be governing. There's no good
Right,
reason.
right. Um, you were an intelligence officer. My understanding as a layperson, it has always been that you can't really tell what was destroyed, particularly on something as delicate as this, instantaneously. In fact, it may take days or weeks or months. Was the president simply making stuff up, exaggerating when he came out with that report, which has now been contradicted again, open source, one leak, but by some pretty compelling information that the program was set back only a matter of months.
Look, I mean, you're reading what I'm reading, and we know well that this president has a tendency to overstate. You know, as someone who came from the world of intelligence, the lawyer in me, we've got to take really good care in the way that we describe uh, the state of play. The question of what is the current state of Iran's nuclear program
Yes.
is essential for us to understand, because without knowing where it's at, we don't know what points of leverage we have. We can't
I,
see a path forward. So this is at the root of the root of what we really need to know. And like I said, I mean, look, you will not find an issue that attracts more bipartisan support and commitment in this Congress, more closely divided than any Congress in a generation. And it makes doing this job really hard to be left in the dark.
and it makes the public yeah, hard, more difficult getting a grasp on this. You helped author.
Like I said, Jen,
Yeah.
parents of service, we have 40,000 American service members in the region. The amount of time it's taking to just get basic information about what our force protection plans are, it's completely unacceptable.
Yeah. One thing that you have done is, together with a group of other Democrats who have served in the military, is write a letter to the president. Tell us what that said and what you hope it provokes.
I'm very proud to be serving on the Armed Services Committee and to be in this work alongside um, other members of Congress who put on the uniform, who love this country, who understand the value of what our military can do for our national security, but who also have felt the costs of wars that were conducted without the proper constitutional checks. And Congress has really seated its seat at the table. We've inherited a system that is completely lopsided in favor of the presidency and the executive branch. And again, I see firsthand in this job every day why it is that the framers were so smart to put Congress in the mix on these basic questions. It's because we are the body closest to the people, and so we're accountable, we're checkable. And I think for too long, Congress has not wanted to actually do its job and weigh in, because these are these are politically difficult decisions, but they're the most consequential decisions that any person in a position of public trust could make. And so we've been taking a close look. There have been a couple of different war powers resolutions that have been introduced in Congress. To me, the details matter. But the basic principle that unites all these efforts is that we have got to have a system of checks and balances. And in the last 6 months under this administration, we've seen usurpations of power like nothing that's ever happened in our history. The basic core functions of Congress, the power of the purse to appropriate dollars, this is a basic function that's been usurped. So we are in an existential battle for the role of Congress in a government under the rule of law and under this Constitution, which I'm pointing to because I keep it close to me at all times.
Well, I think you may be the perfect person to make this argument because, as you said, you've long been dedicated to the proposition that Iran should not get this weapon. It's not as if the people who signed on to that letter have some kind of soft spot for Iran, but there's a constitutional way to proceed here. Do you think there will be some kind of resolution, and is it possible for one of the Democrats to take a privileged resolution rather, and force a vote?
Yeah, the parliamentary procedure here does make a difference. And so we've a resolution introduced earlier this week that has, I think, some important differences from an initial bipartisan resolution. There's a lot in flux right now, Jen, and it's the calendar in this House is really determined in so many, really across the board by the Speaker of the House. I feel that every single day, that he really rules the floor. But this is a resolution that, for good reasons, in the ordinary course, can be expedited for consideration, and there are very good reasons for that. And I think we've got, three committees of jurisdiction here: the House Armed Services Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and the Intelligence Committee, who all have an important seat and role at the table. And I'm very proud to be on the Armed Services Committee. But again, we're shooting in the dark here without the basic information. And, it's coming from the world of intelligence, we can't make any good strategic decisions without really understanding that the devil is in the details here, and the details really matter.
Absolutely. Um, Going forward, presumably some kind of negotiations will resume. Given the fact that Congress has been kept in the dark, as you say, the president has developed a reputation for being an unreliable spokesperson for his own policies and his own actions. How concerned are you about now the prospects for negotiation and, more broadly, America's credibility in the region, or frankly in the world?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very concerned. I think we see this across the board. In the people who the president has nominated and the Senate has confirmed to the most extraordinary positions of public trust in the world. Top of mind for me is our Secretary of Defense, who came before our committee last week. And, I had 5 minutes of questions. You just get 5 minutes, but in 5 minutes, he came for a hearing about a budget that he has so far failed to produce to the Congress. He failed to commit to when we would receive his full budget. He failed to commit to passing a clean audit. The Department of Defense is still the only department in the federal government that has chronically failed to pass a clean audit. These are just basic management positions. This is why I believe so deeply he never should have been nominated. He lacks the judgment and the experience to be leading in this role. He never should have been confirmed when he put American service members' lives at risk by conducting war planning on an open group chat. He should have been fired. He should have resigned. He should have been fired. But here we are, to give one example, in a position where the Secretary of Defense, who oversees $1 trillion budget, 3 million people all around the world, is unable to answer basic questions that any person leading such an organization should answer. And in response to some very basic questions I asked him, including, will you commit to obeying a decision of the United States Supreme Court, he refused to commit to doing so. I mean, this is such a basic constitutional idea, and this is what we're dealing with.
Wow. So going forward, what role do you think Congress can assume? You do have oversight hearings. You may not get an official briefing. Do you think there are members, even on the other side, who are now willing to exercise more oversight, more scrutiny, put some pressure on the White House to be more forthcoming?
I spend my days, this job, being in Congress these days, is it takes a lot of emotional discipline because the days are full of heartbreak.
Yes.
Trying to work with people, trying to find common ground with people who are not immune to reason all of the time, but some of the time situationally completely immune to reason. These are so many of them good people who love this country, who got into this line of work because they want to do something for the people who they represent. And I try to see that in all my colleagues wherever I can. It's very difficult. And, I having worked for Senator McCain and Senator Lieberman, I'm always looking for my amigos, and I still haven't found my most reliable amigos on the other side of the aisle, but I'm never going to stop trying because that's what this job is right now. And um, if in 2 years I can do some good for New Hampshire on the margins, if I can continue to fight, and look, we've had I think HR1, which I know is a little bit out of your lane and a little further afield from Iran, but I mentioned it, the big GOP tax break for billionaires.
Yes.
I think it's the worst piece of legislation that has ever passed the House of Representatives in my lifetime, and one of the worst bills in American history. And the experience of trying to make the case to my colleagues who I know did not run on a platform of bringing about the biggest cuts to Medicaid in American history. They didn't run on a platform of increasing the deficit, the biggest deficit increase in American history. They didn't run on that. Some of them used to be fiscally responsible. They didn't run on a cruel bill that is going to do so much harm for us, a corrupt bill they just didn't run on this, but this is what they've lined up to do. So this is why this is a very difficult job.
Yes.
Notwithstanding all of that, I still got to get up every day, and I still am getting up every day, and getting up in their grill and trying to find ways to work with them.
Right. Last question for you. We saw it really this shocking instance in which, whatever you think of Tulsi Gabbard, she did come forward and she testified that the intelligence that has been in place since 2003, namely that the Ayatollah has not given the order to proceed with an actual weaponization of a bomb, was still in effect. You then heard the president get up and say, she's wrong. And you heard the Secretary of State say, that's irrelevant. What does that do to the integrity and to the morale of the intelligence community?
I think it's really unhelpful. But I just say more broadly, I think my own view is that when we're really, the question is, what is the state of Iran's nuclear program? And these are knowable pieces of information that should be guiding how we develop a strategy and a path ahead. And now we God willing, still have more time right now. And that's, the ultimate currency, more time. That's what the negotiations that preceded President Trump and his first administration were designed to do, to create more time and space to actually address and deter and prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The intentions of the supreme leader, I think, are very difficult to discern. And, a person's interpretation of the supreme leader's intentions is even further afield to me. The real question that our intelligence professionals are equipped to answer and have been trained to answer, I think probably have answered, and these are answers that should be shared with Congress. These go to knowable answers about the state of the location of fissile material that Iran has in its possession, the state of the, really at bottom, the state, where are we? What is the current state of Iran's nuclear program? These are questions that we can and must get answers to.
Well, good luck in getting those answers, and even better luck in trying to pull some common sense, some sense of duty and obligation from your colleagues across the aisle. We often bemoan, maybe Senator McCain is the gold standard and it's a ideal too high, but just some basic common sense and candor and some basic sense of responsibility would make us so much stronger as a country and so much more confident in our democracy. So I wish you the best of luck. It is not an easy job, and terrific to see you again. We'll look forward to having you back soon.
Take care. Great to see you.
Bye-bye.